All right. Um, Thank you for joining us again for a very special episode of Bali Business Review. Today, we've invited Kembang Kertas as a general contractor to speak about a topic that many of our audience would like to know about. And it's what every buyer should check before receiving the keys from the developer and contractor. They've been invited, but they've, I guess, gotten some stage fright and won't show up on our podcast today. So I guess the best I can do is to read off and understand a little bit more about their company portfolio. So let's kind of take a look based on Kembang Kertas, what they have been able to do in the past and who their principals are. But also let's explore some general good practices that we as property managers here have experienced in terms of how to uh, think about what you should do before you accept delivery of a property. Okay, so let's start with Kembang Kertas. This is their company profile. They've been kind enough to give us the PDF there. So Kembang Kertas provides business solutions for growth and other businesses. Okay, so looking at this company profile, there's already some. Funny enough, there's some spelling mistakes. Their signature assistant is 24-hour, 24/7 to make sure everything is under control while you're away from office and project. Well, I guess today they haven't been here and they're 24-hour promise. And some of our offers are inclusive of design, concept, and production under our standard operation and procedure. Services include construction and maintenance, renovation and new build, production and sourcing, including furniture, interior, production and supply, business development, including sales and marketing, revenue growth, SEO, and Google Business and promotion. Okay, so this has been stated by Tawfiq Ibrahim, who's the company director, and this is a good sign. So they do have, I guess, a certificate to their company showing that they are an official company here on their company profile. Okay, let's take a look at some of their capabilities in their workshops here. So this, I guess, is a furniture workshop in their, I'm not sure what location it is, but it seems to be there. And here's some more workshops that look like they are producing furniture as well. So that's that. Let's see, more pictures of furniture being produced. We don't really know the location since we can't ask anybody, but okay, there's some pictures of furniture here. Okay, projects. We got a rendering of a project here, subcontractor for a PT on a project in Labuan Said over here, which is okay. I hope that's okay. There's another rendering of a Moroccan villa also in Labuan Said over here as well, which is also under progress too. And there's another one for another Moroccan type villa over here as well. Okay, so these are three projects in the portfolio as a general contractor. And this is okay, this is interesting. There's another project under progress here in Uluwatu as well. All right, so we see some projects. We see some projects that, let's say, have been completed too as well. This is another project that's been, I guess, finished in Bingen. But we really don't have any references here. We don't know who the owners are. We don't know what their comments are. We, can't interview anybody here since there's nobody to interview. And it just kind of leads to more questions, actually. So here's a pretty good example of a thing that you should probably pay attention to whenever you're thinking about whether or not to accept delivery from a contractor. This is the roofing. So unbeknownst to most property owners, the roof is a very, very essential part of what can make or break your overall building. It goes without saying, but here are some tips that we've noticed. Number one, always make sure that the contractor installs ventilation or provides, let's say, a plan for ventilation on the roof. And the reason why that's super important is because during the course of a very hot Balinese day, a lot of the hot air will rise up to this location. And in that hot air, you will essentially be paying for quite a lot of air conditioning to have that heat removed. So make sure your contractor is actually qualified to do the design work. And I think this is a good tip to remember. It is generally not advisable to rely on the contractor themselves for the design because contractors might not know principles of heat transfer or, let's say, luminosity or volume or any of these other principles that might affect the, let's say, user experience in terms of how your guests will perceive and be able to enjoy their stay. So I think that's a really strategic point to look for. In addition to, let's say, the ventilation on the roof part, I think it's also super, super important to have the waterproofing checked out. The waterproofing, if not checked out, will leak through the roof and it will cause mold and issues on the gypsum, which is typically the roofing material. And that will also result in guest complaints and other issues that are recurring. Another thing that you might want to double check is when the, let's say, building is still in its structural phase to really make sure that there is waterproofing installed correctly on the different sides, edges, and all the particular corners of it. Because if those are not done also correctly, that's another point for water entry point, which leads to blistering and also other unfortunate consequences in that. Okay, the most strategic point to actually look for during the construction of your property is, well, the finishings have not gone inside. So here's another example, which I experienced multiple times in my my career at Oman. The pool. So the pool is, once again, another area where waterproofing can be a serious issue if not done correctly. Pools that have leaks or have been built without, let's say, the correct rebar or waterproofing will crack over time and your entire pool will leak out through all the cracks. It doesn't require a very large crack for that to happen. Just even a millimeter will eventually lead to this recurring issue. So I think it's a really good idea to have a structural inspector or somebody to just double check during the time when everything is checkable to just make sure that it's going according to plan and that you're not going to have to, let's say, reseal your pool over a period of time in history. All right. So here's some finished, let's say, I think, pictures of what the property looks like when the contractor is done, which once again is I guess kind of interesting there. And there's some other finished work here too as well. So overall, I don't really know how I would actually evaluate Kembang Kertas as a company. The key things I think to actually look for in evaluating a contractor are, number one, references. If the contractor you're working for at this moment has no references that they can point to saying that this is a building that I've completed, this is an owner that has received a correct, let's say, specified and correctly delivered product, I would ask for more on the company profile. That is super important. And so why is that important? Number one, I think because most properties are purchased under leasehold agreements, it becomes essentially your loss as an owner if the contractor is taking more than the scheduled amount of time. So the key metrics, I think, of contractor performance are two things. Number one, if the contractor is pushing back on you in the very early about whether or not the specifications can be built within the time and budget allowed, that's a good sign. That's actually a green flag. So unbeknownst to most owners, most of the problems initially begin with, I would call, the wrong expectations. So if you as an owner come in and you say that you want this and this and this, the experience that the contractor will be facing, let's say inexperienced or less mature contractors, is that they'll be tempted to just say yes to everything that you demand. You want this? Yes. You want that? Yes. You want it done in this? Yes. 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 Everything's going to be yes. That's generally a red flag because you have to kind of take into account, I guess, the conservation of energy and the conservation of resources, that it's almost impossible for any person as a contractor or architect to say yes to all your demands because some of those expectations might be mutually conflicting. So Quality number one is if a contractor actually pushes back and says, yes, that can be done, but we need to remove something. If you want this extra feature, it will take longer. If you want this to be built, then this will cause an increase in the budget. That's actually a green flag. And so look out for that. The second thing, once again, is referrals. If you can work with a contractor that can give you personal referrals to past clients who have had successful experiences, that's a really positive sign. If they put the references and everything in a documented form on their company profile, that's also an extremely good sign. So what we're looking to do is, once again, to avoid any disappointments that might occur from missed expectations on the owner side, but also, let's say, maybe eagerness to accept too many contracts on the contractor side. So the third thing I would look for in terms of understanding if the contractor is ready to hand over the property and everything is get an independent survey. Usually the role that does this is a quantity surveyor or a building inspector. So contractors are probably going to tell you that everything is fine, simply just to push you along and let you move on to the next project so they can kind of continue. But before you accept delivery, we think that it's a very, very minor investment to ask for an inspection from an independent third party to just double check if everything works, and perhaps even ask for a first 3-month guarantee. If you can guarantee it during the wet season, even better, because then the weather and, let's say, the rain will be a pretty good test to see if the building has been properly waterproofed. Most problems that occur in the fundamental structure and the performance of the property at normal levels will be detected pretty quickly. And I think the testing, should not be done by the person who built it. The testing should be done by either you yourself as the owner of the property or by an independent third party who has really nothing to gain by passing the test a little bit too easy. All right. So moving on to, let's say, the rest of this company profile. So yeah, project after project after project after project. But once again, what's truly missing in this profile is evidence or references or any, let's say, establishing material that can be, sourced or cross-referenced for, review. So unfortunately, we didn't get a very good experience with Kembang Kertas today, and that's the way that it's going to have to remain until we get a bit more information from their company. But we do, once again, stick by the principles that we think there's good contractors, there's bad contractors, and it's not immediately apparent every day to the untrained eye who is a good contractor and who's an untrained contractor. But the thing I think that is critical is to ask the critical questions. Once again, back up to the very beginning again. Do you have a client list of people who have had successful experiences where you delivered on time and on budget? Do you push back and ask good questions to, manage client expectations if the client is adding too many expectations that are incompatible with the resources the contractor has? And perhaps a good final note is to know that contractors typically have some sort of limited capacity on how many projects that they can run simultaneously. And this simply comes from two constraints. One, is the constraint of leadership density. If there's not enough, let's say, leadership to oversee and manage and make sure that all the properties are okay, and that can lead to really, underperformance across their entire portfolio during, let's say, peak loading. The other thing, is how much of, let's say, what they are building into their offer is managed through effective automation policy, or in the third case is delegation. That's pretty important too as well. If you see that your contractor is strong with automation, that they're able to, say, install security cameras on site that allow for progressive monitoring of the site progress, then that's probably another green flag as well, because it indicates that as they are subcontracting their work out to third parties as well, they're also taking a responsible supervision, let's say, accountability by having those. And even better if they share those video feeds with you as an owner, so that at least that you're able to see the progression of the property as it is being built. And I think the final note that I would offer is just shop around, probably, right? That oftentimes the busiest contractors might be the ones that have already been pre-vetted out, and the ones with, let's say, more availability could be the ones that are the last to be picked. So you do want to double check to see whether or not, let's say, it could be better to wait for the right contractor to get space on their schedule and then proceed. Even though it might feel like a late start might be costing you some time up front, but it certainly saves you a lot of time later down the line. Okay, those are the tips and, let's say, the lessons that we can learn today in the Bali Business Review with the facts and the information that we have. We hope in the future we can have more successful interviews with representatives of general contracting, I think, as well. Okay, this is Jing again with this really brief but hopefully important episode of the Bali Business Review. And remember that I think once again, don't trust anyone. Trust yourself, right? Do your own research. Do a little bit of facts. There's amazing AI tools out there like ChatGPT that you can put in. And if let's say, the resources have already been out there and provided, I think it can be a really good way to save a lot of disappointment. All right, that's it with this episode. See you on the next one, and inspire delight.